Hi, everybody, and welcome back to my channel, Vedic Living. Today, we'll be talking about the upcoming couple of months with the transit of Mars. This is the most difficult or challenging time of this year, 2024. Since the time this year started, myself as well as other astrologers have been talking about the end of the year being very volatile. There are a couple of reasons why we say this. One, Saturn is already retrograde. And when a planet is retrograde, everything moves slow, especially Saturn, because it has to do with discipline and hard work and getting things done. So it is retrograde, which means that things are delayed and nothing is happening on time as you intended it to. And that's because this planet is retrograde right now. So Saturn will be retrograde until the end of the year. And on top of that, on October 9th, Jupiter goes retrograde. So that's, two big planets in the sky that are retrograde. Again, that backwards motion is reviewing, reassessing, reevaluating, not necessarily things moving forward. So that's why things feel delayed. It's almost like that one step forward, three steps backwards kind of feeling that's going on right now. That's because of the retrograde planets. The reason I'm making this video is, in addition to these large planets being retrograde, we have Mars going into a position which is very, very difficult. Because Mars, as you know, right now is in Gemini. It's going to be in Gemini till October 20th. Now, Mars in Gemini, I talked about this in my previous video, how it goes through each of the nakshatras in Gemini, which is Mrigashira, Ardra, and Punarvasu. Each time it goes into one of these nakshatras, those characteristics come out, and that's what you see play out in the world. Mars has been in Ardra, and Ardra nakshatra rules storms and hurricanes and tornadoes and weather disturbances because it has to do with that sense of destruction. Ardra is a very difficult nakshatra. It does give a lot of power to individuals who have their moon there. Although their life may have been very tough, they do become very powerful in life. But when you look at the world in general, and when difficult planets like Mars or Saturn go into Ardra, it causes problems. And because its symbology is the teardrop, it usually has to do with water-related incidents, like drowning or like floods and tornadoes and hurricanes. And what are we seeing right now in the United States? We are having two major storms going on, which is like the largest they've seen in so many years. So this is what happens when Mars is in Ardra. And it's not like it's not a rare thing for Mars to be in Ardra. I want to tell you that. It is there once every couple of years, right? But the last time it was in Ardra in the month of April, May, June of 2023, also we saw storms. And this is why, you do the research, because when you go back and look, you see the similar patterns. And that's how, we know that this is what's kind of coming in future. So if you remember last year when Mars went into Ardra, we had the storm in California. We had raging wildfires in Canada. And then there were the cyclones that happened, which caused a lot of loss of lives. So this is the kind of energy that Ardra brings. It brings destruction and sadness, and mostly through weather-related disturbances. Now, it's a good thing that Mars is a fast-moving planet. Because it's fast-moving, it doesn't stay there for too long. However, this year is an anomaly, because Mars, instead of zipping through the sign of Gemini and then going into Cancer and zipping through the sign of Cancer, it is lingering. It's lingering at a very low speed between Gemini and Cancer for almost, wait for it, an 8-month period. This is unheard of, because Mars usually goes through a sign in about a 4 to 6 week time frame, because it's a very quick moving planet. But because of the way the orbits of the planets are right now in the elliptical, in the sky, the planet Mars looks like it's kind of going backwards and forwards and kind of lingering in those two zodiac signs of Gemini and Cancer for a really long time. This is the reason why, since the beginning of this year, we astrologers have been saying that the end of the year is going to be very troublesome, because while Mars is doing this real slow motion kind of movement back and forth between Gemini, where you have Ardra Nakshatra with the storms and the unpredictable events and earthquakes and earth changes and things like that, you have it going into Cancer afterwards, where it is debilitated. Mars is debilitated in Cancer. It is in the weakest position it can be in. Now, some people argue that Mars being in a weak position in Cancer means that the effect of Mars is reduced. I have to say that it actually makes that planet even more dangerous because it's in that debilitation sign, right? So when it goes into Cancer and it's kind of lingering in that debilitation degree, the planet doesn't know how to express itself. That's the problem. And I'm going to talk in detail about this Mars transit for the upcoming time frame all the way till June of 2025, because we kind of have to trace that planet for this entire time frame. I don't want to break it month by month because it'll be very confusing to follow it. So I'm going to take this entire video to just talk about Mars and what it's doing in the sky. Okay. Now, before we go into all that details, let me remind you to visit my website, www.vedic-living.com. And this is my website. This is where I post predictions. And one of the most important things here is when you're there, sign up for my newsletter, because my newsletter is free. And I send it to everybody who signed up for it every month in the beginning of the month. And it has detailed predictions day by day, week by week, for every single transit that's happening. So you'll get some idea as to how things are going to play out in that month. So hopefully you sign up for it. It's free and it gives you a lot of information. And let me know what you think about it and if you need any more changes to it, because I like to kind of get emails from you guys and get that kind of feedback, because that's what makes us better. We learn from each other and we become better. So that's what I like to do. Now, with that being said, let's go forward into what Mars is doing in the sky. Now, like I said, right now, Mars is in Gemini, where it is in this, Nakshatra Ardra, where it is causing all the atmospheric disturbances and problems with storms and, all the rage kind of events. Any event that you see in nature that has to do with the fury of nature, that is attributed to Mars. Right? Anything that is like last year during the same transit, we saw wildfires, like a lot of wildfires. This year, we are seeing all these hurricanes and storms and earth changes and, shifting of the plates and all kinds of, where the earth is trying to let us know that, hey, I'm powerful. And that's Ardra Nakshatra. It shows us the power, the destructive power of nature. So whenever Mars goes there, it's pretty much every time it does the similar thing where we can see these weather disturbances happening. Now, Mars will move out of Gemini and finally go into Cancer on October 20th. Okay. Now, October 20th, it's going to go into Cancer. And instead of just being there for about 4 to 6 weeks like it usually does and move on into Leo, it stays there. It stays in the sign of Cancer from October 20th till January 20th. Okay. I'm going to talk about this period more in detail when I come back, but first I want to tell you the movement of Mars. Okay. But let me just tell you, when it's in Cancer, it is a very tough period for the world. And I'll explain why that happens too. So October 20th to January 20th, it is in Cancer. January 20th to April 2nd, Mars moves backwards from Cancer into Gemini. Instead of moving forward to Leo, it moves backwards into Gemini again, where you have the Ardra Nakshatra and all of that going on. And it's in Gemini from January 20th to April 2nd. Okay, unheard of, like such a long period of time between two signs. It's very rare. Now, April 2nd, it again comes forward and moves into Cancer. And it's in Cancer from April 2nd till June 6th, at what point it finally leaves this kind of cyclic movement and goes into Leo. Okay. So that's the movement. So now we are sitting in October right now. So we are talking about, 2 plus 6, so 8 months, 8-month period where Mars is going to do this. So this is why we have to watch this period very closely, because this has a lot of indications. First thing, Mars in Cancer, October 20th to January 20th. Now we already know that it has been in Gemini before October 20th. It is causing all these storms, and the weather-related disturbances. All of that is going on. Gemini rules communications and air waves, media. Your public kind of stage. The TV, the news. All of that is Gemini. All communication-related thing. So Mars being there for the past couple of months, we have been seeing a lot of angry outbursts happening on TV. Remember, Mars energy is anger and frustration. Yes, on the positive side, it also rules the direction forward. It gives you the ability to forge forward, make your path, and have the ambition to do things. And yes, it does all that. So it's not a completely bad planet. The problem is, where is it placed? Mars is fine if it's in Capricorn. It makes people sportsmen, and they do great things in the military, and they become really physically active, and they train, and they do good things. Because in the sign of Capricorn, Mars is stable. It's an earth sign. It's ruled by Saturn. Mars wants to be in Saturn's sign because Saturn gives it discipline. Only the ability to act or have action is not enough. That action should be under the umbrella of discipline. That's why Mars likes to be in Capricorn. Okay, it's exalted there. The problem is right now being in Gemini, which is an air sign and which has these treacherous nakshatras, it's tough. Because as it goes through these nakshatras, the energy, the anger, the frustration of Mars is kind of dissipated by the air, right? It's too much. It's out of control. What happens when you fan the flames? It becomes more. That's the reason why it doesn't do well there. And then it does worse when it goes into Cancer. The reason that Mars is debilitated in Cancer is because Mars rules action and anger and frustration, and it's in Cancer, which is an emotional sign. It's ruled by the moon. Any kind of action which is made based on your emotion is not right. It's never going to be right because you're letting your heart make that action. You're letting, it's not ruled by discipline. It's not ruled by practicality, which is what Capricorn is. It is actually ruled by emotion. And that's why Mars is debilitated there. Action cannot be made based on emotion. It has to have the practicality and the discipline of Saturn. So I'm not saying that every time Mars is in Cancer, if you have Mars in Cancer in your birth chart, that's really bad. It is debilitated, but there are a lot of other things we look at. We see if, there is a Neech Bhang Rajyog going on. Is there a Viprita Rajyog going on? Is it Vargotama? There are many things that kind of cancel out that effect of Mars in Cancer. But in world events, every time Mars goes into Cancer, it causes uncontrolled rage and frustration. People are very emotional and they lash out. And they don't know how to kind of behave in that environment. Which planet is exalted, strongest in Cancer? Jupiter. Why is Jupiter strong in Cancer? Because that emotion, that moon kind of energy, which moon rules Cancer, can only be brought into a constructive place by the wisdom of Jupiter. It cannot go to the warrior planet. The warrior planet will just wage wars because of the emotions, right? It has to go to Jupiter, become spiritual, become all-knowing, become knowledgeable. That's the Jupiter energy. That's why these planets, when people say it's debilitated here or it's exalted there, look at the psychology behind it. Why is it debilitated? Why is it exalted? Why doesn't it like the energy of that sign? Okay. So Mars is going into Cancer, October 20th to January 20th. Now, what does this mean for the world? Mars rules real estate. So the first thing that you will see during this period is that the real estate market around the world will get hit really hard. Because whenever Mars goes into Cancer, and this happens every time, there are problems in the economy and in real estate. Now, when I say economy, that's not for all the countries. It depends on which house Cancer happens to be in that country's chart. But in United States chart, Mars being in Cancer would be in the United States 8th house. And it would aspect the Pluto right across from there, which is in the 2nd house of finances and wealth. So this is why we say when Mars is in Cancer, for United States, it causes problems in economy and stock markets, shares, stocks, investments, anything to do with real estate, everything gets hit really hard, okay? And that's this period we are going into, October 20th to January 20th. So be very careful during this time with any investments and things like that. And it's tough. It's tough because, the real estate market gets hit, then, property prices get hit, then, people can't buy a house and all those things happen. That makes people emotional, Cancer, and angry, Mars. Two energies start coming out at this time, okay? Cancer rules family. And Mars being in Cancer, you will see a lot of arguments happening within families, right? Within, like between parents and kids, or between siblings, or between husband and wife. And it's because of this heightened emotional kind of stuff going on. So, but in the world, this ends up being wars. There's going to be more unrest between November, December, and January, especially in the charts of countries. And please wait till the end. When towards the end of this video, I'm going to give you country level predictions. Okay, I'm going to talk about certain countries that are impacted by this. So going back to the family kind of idea. So family issues will happen. There may be arguments going on, and maybe these are pent up emotions. See, Mars in Cancer is debilitated, and then it's going to go retrograde after a while, which makes it even more difficult, right? And that's around the first. So it's in Cancer from October 20th to January 20th, that period. But in the first week of December, it goes retrograde. Now that is even worse because it's not only debilitated in Cancer, now it is moving backwards. So that's like a very, very weak Mars, which can lash out. So when it goes retrograde, that's when it is even more volatile. So the month of December and January, you will see a lot of riots and fights and issues around the world, more so than we already see, right? And this is why in the United States, with the election coming up, we talk about how that election can be disrupted because of these energies in the sky. Saturn is retrograde, Jupiter is retrograde, Mars is debilitated. This is a very perfect kind of equation to cause widespread unrest. Okay, there's going to be conflicts, there's going to be fights, there's going to be riots. People are going to emotionally lash out. So this has to be a time when everybody is careful. Okay. Now, during this time frame, from October 20th to January 20th, when Mars is in Cancer, it is going to be in the Nakshatra Pushia, which is one of the nakshatras in Cancer, between October 28th and January 13th. Okay. Now, this is important. Pushia Nakshatra rules, security, protection, family, having that kind of safe haven kind of feeling. Mars is coming into this nakshatra. So now it is very volatile because people who are, trying to get into these fights and riots, other people are fearing for their protection. There is safety problems happening. And this could also mean in families, in your own families, you may see that, there's more like losing temper, anger, lashing out, all of that going on. Maybe this is necessary. Maybe these are pent-up emotions which people have kept inside for a long time, and it has to come out now for healing. Because everything in the planetary kind of system, anything that happens in astrology happens for a reason. Whatever is coming out in this time frame will cause long-term healing after the month of June 2025. So let's keep that in mind. So Pushya Nakshatra also rules nourishment because its symbology is the cow's udder. So while Mars is in Pushya from October 28th till January 13th, it is going to cause supply chain problems, agricultural problems, food shortage, all of those things are going to happen. Okay. Now, while it is in Pushia, it goes into Pushia, it moves, and then the first week of December, at around 11 degrees of Cancer, it's going to stand still. Okay. That's a stationing degree. Very important. It's standing still because it's about to go backwards. Stationary degree. Whenever Mars or Saturn stations in the sky, it's a very important time frame. It is telling us, look at me, pay attention to me. I'm about to show you something. The fact that it's stationing in Cancer, in its debilitation sign, and in the Nakshatra of Pushia, the first week of December is very, very volatile because it stands there at 11 degrees of Cancer. It could be the peak of conflict. It could indicate an attack of some sort or violence. Okay. Now, we'll get a slight bit of reprieve when it moves backwards. Okay. And then it goes on January 13th. It goes from Pushya into Punarvasu. Okay. And from there, from January 13th till January 20th, it's going to be in Punarvasu Nakshatra. Punarvasu, they say it's the return of the light. There's a little bit of reprieve there. Okay, so all of these issues that we are seeing October, November, and December, in the second week of January, we will see some consolation. Okay, things start getting a little better. Okay, while it is in Cancer, I'm going to talk a little bit more about that. And I'm going to come into the country charts right now. For United States, it's very, very difficult because Cancer, the sign Cancer is the 8th house in the United States chart. And 8th house is tumultuous stuff, right? It's always unexpected. It's unpredictable events and it's destruction. And sometimes it can indicate death, right? And it is not an easy placement for it to be in. And it is opposing Pluto in United States second house, which means Pluto can mean that, things are changing in terms of the economy, in terms of the governance. And I also want to remind you, while all of this is going on, as we go into the year 2025, US will be in its Pluto return, which means Pluto is coming back to where it was in the year 1776, when the Constitution was created. So what does that mean? That it took it 250 years for this government, and now that Pluto return happens, so this coming year of 2025 is going to be very, very critical, because this is going to bring about a new form of governance and economy. All the stuff that's going on between October and June that Mars is going back and forth with is kind of leading us to that new form of governance. Okay. And that's what this is all kind of heading up to be. And that'll bring a good kind of period after June of 2025. So that's now Pluto in United States chart, which is Pluto is the planet that rules transformation. It also rules nuclear energy, but it rules transformation mainly. It is in the sign of Capricorn at 5 degrees. So now that we talked about Mars opposing the Pluto, your question could be, when is it going to be exactly at that 5-degree mark, exactly hitting that Pluto in United States chart? It's going to be there November 5th. This is going to be between November 2nd and 5th. And as fate or destiny or the planets want it, that is the time of the elections in United States. I mean, this cannot be a coincidence that at the time of the elections, Mars is exactly opposing Pluto in United States chart. So this is telling us something big. Whatever is happening during this election, which, it will have a lot of uproar, there'll be a lot of violence, there'll be a lot of, indignance, because, like I said, Mars is in Cancer at the time. It's also opposing Pluto, which means it is gearing up to bring about that Pluto-like reformation, restructuring. Everything's going to change with the economy, with the government, with everything. Okay, so that's what it's gearing up to do. So now we talked about Mars being in Cancer, October 20th to January 20th. In between that, in the month of December, it's going to stand still at 11 degrees. When it stands still at 11 degrees, it is triggering a lot of country charts. It's triggering Iran's chart, Iran's supreme leader, which is Ali Khamenei, his chart. It's triggering Israel's chart. It's triggering China's chart, Xi Jinping's chart, and US chart, of course, like I said, and it's triggering India's chart. So because India has almost like, 3 planets sitting in Cancer, right? So this is, of course, with Mars going back and forth on those planets, it's triggering. So these are the countries that are going to be in the forefront of this volatility and these, tough times in December, in the first week of December. Okay, so Southeast Asia, that area with India mainly, and Middle East with Iran and Israel. I did not look at. I don't have the other countries' charts like Lebanon and all the other countries, Turkey. So I looked at Iran, Israel. I looked at their leaders. So all those charts have. It's crazy how they all have that 11-degree marker where Mars is stationing. So that area is impacted. And then we come here, and United States and Canada both have that. So both are impacted. So now we have an idea where in the world we'll start seeing the unrest between October, November, December, and January. The whole time when Mars is in Cancer, especially in December when Mars stations at 11 degrees. Okay. Now, once Mars moves backwards, it's going to go, like I said, into Gemini, January 20th, and it'll be there till April 2nd, in which time frame it will again go back into the air sign of Gemini, bringing about communication disturbances, airwaves, telecommunications, internet, problems with the news and media. When Mars is in Gemini, a lot of times the media or the news is filled with Mars kind of news, right? Violence and all of those things. But it also is going to be in Ardra Nakshatra. So there will be more storms and things like that in that March timeframe, right? When, March to April timeframe, you will see more of these natural disturbances, weather-related disturbances happening. Okay. So it's going to be in Gemini. Then April 2nd, it's going to come back into Cancer. Now, before that, it stations in Gemini. Remember, it's going backwards. Now it has to stand still. It stands still at 22 degrees of Gemini. Again, 11 degrees of Cancer was the first station. 22 degrees of Gemini is the second station. If you have planets in either one of these degree marks, then you have to kind of watch that area of your life to see what is happening. Okay. So, and again, if you want to know where your planets are, you can use the free chart calculator on my website. It'll give you that information. So 22 degrees of Gemini, it'll station again, getting ready to go forward. And when it gets ready to go forward, it's again kind of, moving through the same nakshatras, Ardra, Punarvasu, then it goes into Cancer, then it's in Pushia, and so on. But then it goes quickly. April 2nd to June 6th, Mars is moving quick, right? Through Gemini, through Cancer, and out. It's out into Leo. That's what we are waiting for, right? Because Mars in Cancer is not easy, right? So again, when Mars goes through in that time frame in April, when it goes through the now again, going back to when it is stationing in Gemini at 22 degrees, that is where the United States 7th house is, and that is where the United States sun is. Okay, this is important. Sun in any country chart is its leader. So when Mars stations at 22 degrees of Gemini in the end of Feb, early March, that is not good for the leader of United States. Because at the same point when it is stationing there, there is a problem where Iran's chart is also getting involved in that. So this is definitely showing us there's something going on with all these countries involved, possibly a world conflict that comes to a head around the last week of February, where it hits the sun in United States chart, Mars stands still there. Very volatile time. The leader of this country has to be careful. And then it moves forward again. So that period is only for a week or so in the last week of Feb. Okay. And the other thing with that also is while it is standing still on United States Sun, it is aspecting United States Saturn in the 10th house. Again, government, right? Form of government. So there is major things going on during this time, which is affecting the US government and the US leader. And like I said, these indications can also be found in Canada's chart, in Iran, Israel, China, and of course, the leaders of Iran, Israel, and China, and in India's chart. And like I said, after this whole thing is over, Mars on June 6th moves into Leo. So things start getting better. And whatever has happened in this 6-7 month period will bring about long-lasting change after that point. It's almost like a birthing process. It's like a required kind of, pain that we should go through for something nice to be born out of it. And that's the process we are going through now. I did forget to talk about a couple more charts because, I can't look at everybody's chart, but I look at people who are or have been in the news in 2024. And King Charles' chart is also affected by the stationing of Mars because his ascendant is at 12 degrees of Cancer. Mars stations at 11 degrees. It's pretty close in Pushia. So he has to be careful when it stations in December, not the one in February, because he doesn't have anything at the 22-degree mark in Gemini. When Mars stations in Gemini in February, it is at 22 degrees of Gemini, which is the 12,000 King Charles chart, where it will aspect his Venus from, his debilitated Venus. So again, it does kind of get very close to that degree mark, a little too close for comfort, I would say. So the first week of December till the last week of February, he has to be careful with his health. Kate Middleton also has to be careful because when I looked at her chart, the 11-degree mark in Cancer was opposed, exactly opposed her Mercury at 12 degrees of Capricorn. So there is something going on there. Mercury is in her 7th house. It could mean that she doesn't agree on something with Prince William, or there's some kind of disagreement going on between them. But being in the 7th house, it is a Marka planet. So her health also she should watch, because when it goes backwards and stations at 22 degrees of Gemini, it opposes her sun and it is on her moon because she's born around a full moon period. So that is at that 25-degree mark of Gemini, very close to the 22-degree stationing of Mars. So, and that is in the 6th and the 12th house. Again, health and hospitals. So both those charts, Kate Middleton, King Charles, I saw that they are getting impacted with the stationing of Mars in Cancer and in Gemini. So they both should be careful between the beginning of December and the end of February. I will do a separate video on the royal family because you can see these things happening in the family charts too. Like I can look at Prince William's chart, which I haven't yet, to see if anything there shows something going on with his family, like the father or the spouse. Or I can look at the children's chart to see if something going on with the mother or the grandfather. We can see these things play out in the family members' charts. So that's definitely a research that I want to do. And hopefully they are careful in that 3-month period and take some time off for themselves and relax, take less stress. Especially Kate Middleton looks like she's under a tremendous amount of stress because as Mars is transiting, it is exactly on her full moon and her Rahu. Rahu causes stress. Moon and Rahu together in Kate Middleton's chart in the 12th house, she is constantly under stress. She can overthink things. So, and that Mars is now transiting it. So she has to be careful in order to keep her stress levels low and take some time off for herself and relax and hopefully get through this 3-month period where this Mars transit is going on. It's asking them to slow down. Okay. All right, so good. So that's what I wanted to talk about, the Mars transit, and I'm glad I got in. I was trying to remember. I thought I forgot something. I don't look at notes, so I'm always trying to remember what I want to say. So I'm glad I got that in, but I'll be making a detailed video on the royal family, and I'll make another video going forward. As we get through the end of this year, I'll be making more videos, shorter ones, so you can get quick predictions, but something that can help you get through this time. And yeah, and we'll get through it together. Okay. Thank you so much for watching. Please like and subscribe. And, I'll see you again next time.